That will become animal divorce. For the ladies, you're supposed to make one choice. So, that is by the way of good education. You do not want to have animal divorce here. As I told now, as I told about the election members,
background as a person. I'm deeply involved in human resources issues, and I have a conviction that these issues of workers are basically human resources issues. The other thing is that when I looked at the issues that are affecting workers in this country, when you look at the labor laws that govern the labor relationship in this country, we have 11 of them. Most of them are virtually outdated. When you look at, for example, the Pensions Act, it was last touched in 1946. The NSSF Act, which we have been struggling with to get midterm access, was last touched in 1985. So, when you look at the Employment Act, which most of us are familiar with, was last worked on in 2006. Now, all the laws cannot solve contemporary problems. Most of the problems we have now, the mismatch between the employment world and the realities on the ground and the laws, most of the problems we have are emanating from all the laws which can no longer solve the issues that we have now. For example, when you look at the NSSF Act, it gives the minister powers to appoint the board, full board of NSSF. And what does that mean? It means that that board is not owing its allegiance to workers. So our point of contention is that at an opportunity like this one we are going for tomorrow, this should be one of the times when we are electing at least half of the board members to the NSSF so that they can owe their allegiance to the workers who send them there. So for the way it is now, that fund cannot solve our problems because the law that forms it is defective. The other issue is, I wanted members to understand that we have a problem with the taxation. Currently, Uganda is among very few countries in this world where we are still paying direct taxes. Most of you who were there by 1996, you remember we had graduated tax. When Semogerere said that he's going to scrap graduated tax, in the next rally, President Museveni abolished graduated tax. Direct taxes are an outdated form of taxation. When I buy fuel, I buy a cloth, I buy anything, at a consumption, we are paying taxes. So it means that when you are paying taxes at consumption and then you are also being deducted payee and LST, it is actually a form of double taxation. And when you calculate, when you do you compound all the amount of money we pay in taxes, it accounts for almost 60% of our income. So workers need to understand that this is something we are supposed to reject, and we need new voices in Parliament to be able to attend to some of those controversial issues. The other thing is, when you look at how the House is composed currently, how workers are, the composition of workers MPs in that House is not balanced. Most of those people, you know the parties where they belong to. You remember in most of the debates when they're in that Parliament, they owe their allegiance to the parties where they are coming from. Workers, as workers, we belong to the workers' party, in quotes. When you are sent there in that House, you have been sent there to represent workers. It is a full force of its own. So people who have other allegiances need to go to other forms of parliamentary representation, but not workers. Because once they're in that House, you'll find that they cannot stand with workers. They will stand with their parties and the authorities that have stood with them. So those are some of the things we'd like to ensure that we attend to. The other issue, I'm not satisfied with the performance of the current Parliament. When you look at this Workers' Eye, a magazine by Uganda Journalists Union, on page 8, and most of you in the media, you know that we have the parliamentary scorecard of the African Leadership Institute by Bulkor. When you go in the details, you will find that whereas some of the members of Parliament performed very well, they are there. But we have people who performed poorly. You find that somebody attended Parliament in 5 years only 6 times. There is also another who attended Parliament in 5 years only 5 times. Now, workers, what kind of anger do you need to really understand that we need to make change? So, when I look at some of those things, if this election is supposed to be fair, in its fairness, given the sophistication of this kind of voters, I have a feeling that we need to make a change in the way we are represented in the House of this country. So the issue is that Currently, the whole country is suffering. One time I went to one of the offices on a Friday, and somebody says, me, I don't work on Friday because I left Friday for the scientists, because they are getting better money than the artists. You understand? Now, you find that as a whole country, we are suffering. You cannot get the service that you need. So the debate must be started. It must be sparked off that we need a salary review. We cannot leave salary review to be a matter of negotiation. You know, even the president was disappointed. One time he said it and said, I was misled to pay so and so a lot of money for nothing. You remember that? Yeah? So the issue is that it must be a scientific process. Salary, we agree that different jobs have got different risks and the breadth of responsibility, the risks, they cannot be paid the same. But it must be fairly reached at. Scientifically, in HR, we have what we call job grading. That process should be followed even in government, so that we know that given the strength of this job in a process that has been reached at scientifically and fairly, then we are able to say, okay, this job relative to other jobs carries this amount of weight and it can carry this amount of money. So the way it is now, when you look at parastatals versus the general public service, even among the parastatals, there is differences. When you go to people in the UNRWA, they are not paid like the people in URI. People in URI are different from KCCA. The same people, same qualification. So it is something that we need to challenge. And you know, when you come from the independent background, it is very easy to challenge this, because many people are in that house, especially people in the ruling government. They are tied by so many rules, collective responsibility, and they cannot do certain things. So that house needs an addition of new people who are able to articulate some of these things and independently standing with their constituencies to be able to push for some of these things. So, to me, that is how I would handle it. My message to the voters is that it's time for change. Workers really need true representation in that house. Let us look at the African Leadership Institute Parliamentary Scorecard, make sense of it. If that cannot annoy you as the worker, then nothing will ever annoy you. The other issue is that we are not coming into this as a matter of right. You know, when you are in an election where the election we just completed is a right, the election we are in today is a responsibility. We are delegates. We vote on behalf of the people who sent us. Think about them. Ask yourself, what I'm about to do, or if I've been given money, am I really doing the right thing to vote because somebody has given me money? Or I'm listening to the voice of the people who sent me to come and delegate on their behalf. So workers in this country have suffered enough and they need true representation. So I think that's it for now. And